Welcome back to the Getting Closure podcast. I'm James. I'm here with Cheryl Stainsby. Hello again, Cheryl.
Hello, James.
So, personal guarantees, Cheryl. This is the headache. Tell me when these come in. When do these come in the process? Personal guarantees.
James, when we're working with clients, one of the things that we like to do before we sit down and put a company into liquidation is we actually ask the client whether they have a copy of all of the credit applications that they've signed, so we can see if they've signed any personal guarantees. And unfortunately, most directors don't keep a copy of their credit applications, so they often don't know. Some directors do know, and they're aware of any personal ramifications that are going to fall out of a liquidation. But more often than not, what happens is 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks into a liquidation, suddenly letters will start coming to the director personally, holding them personally liable for debts that they've signed personal guarantees on.
Right, so that's... And that can be quite seemingly harmless looking documents and agreements. So people used to talk about photocopier contracts, but all sorts of things where you sit there and you just got to read the fine print because you're actually authorising them. Well, tell me what they're actually authorising them to do. So what do the actually things say?
A lot of credit applications have a clause that says, and it's usually clearly labelled as a director's guarantee, it says that if the company doesn't pay its debts, that you as the director will be personally liable for those debts.
Right.
Photocopiers are a great example. A lot of people assume that when they sign up for a photocopying machine, that if the photocopying machine gets taken back by the company, that's the end of it. But actually quite often what you're signing is you're actually signing a contract for a certain number of photocopy. So
it's like a service contract.
Service contract, that's right. Yeah. And you might then suddenly find that you're liable for a $20,000 debt if you break one of those. More commonly in the construction industry, particularly with plumbing and electrical supplies, all of those suppliers have personal guarantees in their credit applications. So when it becomes apparent that they're not going to get paid via the liquidation, then they will often write to you directly and demand payment.
Right, and what happens if you say, I've got a waterfront home but I've got no money? What happens in that situation?
Generally speaking, the creditor will pursue you to bankruptcy.
Yeah, right. So basically these contracts will allow you to... I was thinking about your service contractor. You're talking about if you break a service contractor for a photocopy, it's not the broken photocopy, it's the service. It's the agreement you've signed. And so it's the agreement you've signed or the goods you've taken. So they can, to the value of that plus any costs, isn't it, to try and get from you personally. And then if you don't have any money in the bank account, well, then it's the car, the boat.
Well, they have to appoint, generally speaking, they have to pursue you to bankruptcy for that to happen. But there are occasions when some creditors, and we do see this a lot more often now, a lot of credit applications now have what we call a charging clause in them, which says if you don't pay the bill, that we can put a mortgage on your property, we can put a caveat on your property. And you then can't deal with that property, you can't sell it and you can't refinance it until you pay the debt of that creditor. And this is very common in the construction industry at the moment. So I strongly advise everybody to very carefully read credit applications and get advice, get legal advice before signing, but to keep every single one of them so that if your business does get into trouble, you clearly understand what the risks are to the director personally if you put your company into liquidation and you don't pay these creditors. And
I think that's, a wise old liquidator said to me once that never give a director's guarantee. I mean, these days that's pretty hard to do. There's for a lot of things that you've just got to do it. So if that's the case, then you must keep your records. You must sort of know what you're up for. That's got to be part of your conversation, as you say in the beginning. It's like, hey, Cheryl, I've signed these contracts and these are the implications. So at least you know what you're dealing with up front.
That's right.
Yeah,
yes.
great. Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Let's keep talking.